Alright, so I'm back with not as many plugins as last time, but I still have a slew of plugins to go through. This tutorial is going to be about some of the stereo effects you can do, and I'm not doing the reverb or delay or reverser snap-ins. Those are going to have their own tutorial. Those ones are just a tiny bit different, but you could think of them as stereo effects. These ones are chorus, ensemble, flanger, phaser, Haas effect, and stereo. So basically, these sounds will add stereo width, except for stereo. The stereo snap-in already needs stereo information for it to do anything. Otherwise, the only knobs you can really use are mid and panning. So right now, mid is all the way down, and you probably can't hear anything because I have to sell my audio to mono, so you don't have audio coming out of just one speaker because I'm kind of a recording idiot still. But mid is gone, and if you look at the top of the screen when I play a note, you'll notice that there's still sound. You can't hear it. I can, but there's no sound. But if I bring mid up, then the audio information shared by both speakers is back, and only the mid information is displayed by the visual at the top. Panning is pretty simple. It's just shifting from left to right in the speaker stereo field, I guess. Haas effect is similar to stereo, but it can create a stereo field out of nothing. Basically, if I have a completely mono sound, it will delay either the right channel or the left channel, and you can pick by a number of milliseconds, and you can delay them by up to 100 milliseconds, and that would sound like a bit like this. It's really noticeable, but you rarely use such an extreme amount of stereo delay. That's another thing. The Haas effect is known as stereo delay because that's what it is. It just delays one of the speakers so that you get the impression of stereo width. Pretty simple effect. Chorus, another simple one. A lot of people, this is like a classic effect, I guess, so most people know about this, but I'll go over it quickly anyway. Delay is the delay of the chorus voices. Depth is the amount of delay variation, and it's kind of like detuning. Rate, if I turn the depth down, you can hear it moving pretty fast, but not a lot. If I turn the depth up, it creates more variation in the delay. The rate is the speed of the delay. You could think of it kind of like a vibrato. So if I make it a sine wave, and that's what the chorus is doing to the sine wave, right? It's kind of weird. And if I turn the depth down, it'll be pretty much back to normal. Taps is just another way of saying the number of voices, so you can have 2 or 3 chorus voices. Spread is the stereo width, I guess, and you can turn down the amount, so you can get a mono chorus basically. If you look at the visual at the top, you'll see that the 2 bars are always exactly the same in value. That means both speakers are outputting the same amount of audio from phase plant. And you can mix in the dry signal with the mix knob with all of these except for the Haas effect and the stereo effect. Ensemble is kind of like unison, and if you remember you probably do remember the unison from the generator section, but it basically duplicates the sound. It's like a kind of a cross between unison and chorus. You can have up to 16 voices, which is pretty impressive. I don't really ever need to use that many voices, but I guess if you want something really thick, you can. Like, extra thick, you know? Detune, kind of like the depth in chorus, just the amount of detune. Spread is the stereo width, mixing in the wet signal with the dry signal. And then the motion drop down over here is basically different kinds of modulation types. So the voices move around the stereo field in different ways, I guess. I think that's kind of what the graph at the top of the snap-in is representing, just the way they're moving around. And the sine wave type of motion looks like a circle, and I'm going to do a really shit explanation, I can already tell. But if you visualize a sine wave, it goes up and then it curves at the top and goes down and curves at the bottom. If you visualize that in three-dimensional terms, it looks like a circle. And that's basically what this is. It's a sine wave in 3 dimensions. So a sine wave is kind of like a circle moving over time. And that's my shitty explanation of why the sine wave type of motion looks like a circle. I'm so funny. Okay. Flanger. This flanger works, well, all flangers work by taking the signal and creating a delayed version of the signal, resulting in the flanging effect. And right now, I need some harmonics. And I'll probably bring it back down to bass level. And there you go, that's your flanger. Right now, it doesn't seem like much is going on. Usually you think of the flangers like really wide, but that's not what the main function of the flanger is. If you turn off scroll, it's not going to move around, and you can kind of use this snap-in like a filter. It's kind of like a comb filter in a way. I went over the comb filter in my first effects tutorial, which was filters and EQs. But you have to keep in mind that depth and rate have to be all the way down for this to happen. Otherwise, you're going to get movement. Scroll, basically, it adds some stereo effects. So offset is the phase offset between the original signal and the delayed signal. Motion is the amount of movement, I guess the speed of the movement of the delayed signal. Feedback does some wacky shit, basically. And spread is the stereo field. I feel like every snap-in has this knob. And then there's a mix knob. Very cool. Thank you, Kilohertz. Alright, phaser. This is so cool. Wow, it only has 7 filters though. So basically what the phaser is it takes like filters and it moves them through the sound. Some phasers do this by actually phasing the sound. Other phasers are like manual filters, like Harmer's. If you've heard of Harmer, it's an additive synth. So what it does is it takes a bunch of filters and it moves them through the sound to create this swirly effect, which phasers are really known for. Cutoff controls like the center of where the filters are moving around. The rate is the speed of the movement, the depth is the amount of movement. And I got kind of a messy saw wave at this point. Order is the amount of filters moving through the sound. So if I get some good settings for demonstrating this, you can see the filter moving around in the lower mids. Spread and mix. Oh, I've never seen those before. Okay, I think I'm done. I think I've covered everything I needed to in this one. I'm gonna go get some coffee.